What's going on, guys? It's T90, and the biggest Age of Empires 2 patch ever has just hit. In this video, we're going to discuss all the balance changes and some of the changes that are coming to the actual game. But it's important to note that this is a bit different than the public preview build, which had a lot of hype surrounding it. There were some things that the devs switched from that build, or there were some things that the devs removed. There's a lot of things in this patch. This will probably be a lengthy video. I will do my best to go through every single point and give brief opinions on it. We'll also make sure to do our best to add some timestamps. That way you can sort through it at your leisure. Let's go. So before we get to balance, which is the main focus of this patch, one big thing they did was they made small trees and idle villagers in-game settings. One of my biggest problems with Age of Empires 2 DE is every single time there's a patch, every single mod that you have is removed. And it's difficult to know this, so you play a game, and once you're in a ranked game, your trees are large, you don't have your grid mod, and if you're trying to play the game properly, it's very hard with big trees. So I know this won't affect everybody, but I know a lot of people get annoyed with that. Now, small trees and idle villagers are in-game settings, which means that if there is a game update and you miss it, when you're in the game, you're still going to have the most crucial mods. So shout out to the devs for that. That's going to remove a lot of headaches. Moving on to the balance, there is a general theme of trying to incorporate more infantry into Age of Empires 2 here, okay? Starting off with Gambesons, a technology from the barracks, which can be researched after supplies, where the Militia Line receives +1 Pierce Armor. It's 100 food and 100 gold, so not that expensive, and extra Pierce Armor can be very helpful for infantry. The Militia Line does have a mobility problem, which I'll talk to at some point, but also, the fact that they die to archers very easily has been an issue. So for civilizations that prefer infantry or have good infantry bonuses, with the Gambesons technology, we might see a little bit more infantry play. Another thing about the Militia Line, which has kind of been an issue, is how long it takes to be fully maxed out. You have to go from Militia to Man-at-Arm, Longswords, Two-Handed Swordsman, and Champion, and sometimes you just don't have the time. So they have made the longsword upgrade research time decrease from 45 seconds to 40 seconds. The two-handed swordsman upgrade research time decreased from 75 seconds to 60 seconds. And the champion upgrade research time decreased from 100 seconds to 85 seconds. I'm not going to do the math on that. Maybe Hardy will edit it into the video, but that's a lot of seconds. And that can help you get to the champion line or your two-handed swordsman line a little bit earlier. But they didn't just stop there with the barracks units. They did apply some changes to the pikeman line as well. The pikeman upgrade research time has been decreased from 45 seconds to 35 seconds. That's considerable. And then the upgrade cost was changed from 215 food and 90 gold to 160 food to 90 gold. So again, you have a situation where it's less expensive to click pikeman, and it also techs a little bit faster. And currently the way things have played out with pikeman is it's been kind of awkward to justify the pikeman upgrade if it's not combined with different things. I feel like here it's maybe reaching a point where it's not that expensive to get if you have some leftover spearmen. It's still a decision you have to make, but it's interesting to see that. Now, they didn't stop there in the barracks. They also made some changes to the eagles. The Aztecs, the Mayans, and the Incas are known for being able to flood their eagles, and the reason eagles are able to flood so easily is because of their cost. So the Eagle Warrior cost has gone from 20 food to 50 gold to 25 food and 50 gold. Might not seem like the biggest increase, but when you're going from 20 food to 25, that's actually considerable amount percentage-wise. And a lot of these build orders that people are going with 15 to 20 on gold, will require a little bit more food eco. Now, I don't mind that change. I don't know if I'm a big fan of that change coming in when all the other changes to the champion line have come in. Because the counter, the play that people on paper should be going for against these eagle plays, should be the long swordsman play in Castle Age and two-handed swordsman and champion in Imperial Age. The thing is, it took a lot of time. Eagle warriors have a bit more mobility. I get that they want to change that with the eagles and they want to make it more difficult to get to the eagle spam because it's strong, but this could be disastrous for the eagle warriors long term. We'll see. One small thing I forgot to mention with the barracks is that supplies also research is a little bit faster. Supplies obviously not a new tech, so in general, you could just tech into and use your champion line a little bit faster after this new update. Now, not every civilization gets the new technology. I'm not going to read off all the civilizations that do and do not get this, but we'll have it up on screen and it should break down everything for you. So basically, everything in the barracks has been adjusted in some way, shape, or form. which could shake up the meta in Age of Empires. But we do also have some Civ-specific things that are coming, so let's go through those, starting with Aztecs. And for the Aztecs, it's not that crazy. The 50 extra starting gold is received after completing the first town center. You're going to see a few bonuses like this. This is all based for nomad starts. Doesn't affect their standard play whatsoever. They still have 150 gold in the bank when you start off with a TC. A notable and exciting change they made for the Aztecs is that the Jaguar Warrior, their unique unit, now has increased pierce armor from 1 to 2. Similar to other forms of infantry, the Aztec Jaguar Warrior does struggle against archers, so giving them a little bit more pierce armor helps them run in against archers and justify making them a little bit more. The Bengalis receive a new bonus where melee cavalry gain +2 bonus damage versus skirmishers. I personally don't mind this change. I'm not sure it'll make that big of an impact. Bengalis are a little bit awkward to play right now, and I feel like buffing the stable of a civilization that has so little options within that stable is not really a bad thing. They do get full blacksmith upgrades for their stable units, so it'll make their light cav a little bit stronger in a situation where it should already be strong. The other change is the Bengalis' unique tech Mahayana, and now also applies to monks. It feels like this is just to add a little bit of flavor to the technology. Bengalis do tend to go for a lot of monks, though, so it does make them a little bit stronger with the ability to get more pop space. Moving on, we have the Berbers, whose villager movement speed is not 10% all the time now. It is now 5% faster in Dark Age and 10% starting in Feudal. There have been players abusing or using the 10% faster Dark Age villagers to run across the map and steal boars, to just Vill Rush in general, and I feel like the devs realized that maybe it got a little bit obnoxious, and so they've just nerfed that a little bit. It does hurt the Berber economy in Dark Age a little bit, but Berbers are really strong, and I think that's reasonable. Moving on to the Bohemians, the Hussite Reforms technology, which I put in my useless unique text video a couple months back, is now a little bit cheaper. So monks and monastery technologies have their gold costs replaced by food after 500 food and 450 gold instead of 800 food and 450 gold. I don't think this is going to have a big place in the 1v1 meta, but does make it a little bit easier to justify going for some crazy monks later on in, let's say, a team game. The next one's a big one, especially because it's for the Britons, a civilization that has been around for so long, and the team bonus for Britons has been changed from 20% faster working archery ranges to 10% faster working archery ranges. I feel like this is not something that people have really picked up on from the mid to low elo, but a big reason Britons are a no-brainer for team games is not just because of their range, but because of that team bonus. So archer ranges working 10% faster is still very good, suits the Britons. It's just not as fast. It doesn't make having Britons on the team quite as crazy in a 4v4, where you have two players going archers in most cases. They also fixed an issue where town center cost discount was not reducing the cost of repairing. I think this is due to the fact that town centers for Britons are cheaper, and when you repair a building, it's based on the cost. But I'm going to be honest, that actually makes Britons a bit stronger and makes it incredibly hard to push them. So I don't know. Tell me what you think in the comments about that. I think that probably falls into the category of it's not a bug, it's a feature. From a balance perspective, I kind of like the fact that Britons had to pay normal cost to repair a town center, but that's just me. Bulgarians, we can skip by quickly. The stone discount does not apply to the starting town center. That is just a nomad change, which again, we referenced, just trying to make things more consistent there. The next B is a big B. The Burgundians, who have just been insane balance-wise ever since they've been introduced. Possibly the most controversial technology in the game belongs to them as well. And that's what they addressed. So they made a couple changes. So we're going to start off with the Flemish Revolution technology. First, it's still in the game. They didn't remove it. They're adjusting it. Let's see what they're doing. The Flemish Revolution cost has been changed from 1,200 food and 650 gold to 200 food plus 10 food per villager converted and 150 gold plus 5 villager per villager converted. So if you were to go to 200 villagers and click the button, it would be more expensive to have the Flemish Revolution. They also did address the stats on the Flemish militia. They decreased the HP from 75 to 60. Their base damage has been decreased from 12 to 11. The pierce armor has gone from 1 to 0. But they did make it cheaper to produce a Flemish militia, moving it from 60 food to 25 gold to 50 food and 15 gold. Also, Flemish militia production after researching Flemish Revolution has been moved from town center to barracks. But guys, no one has been making additional Flemish militia, right? I mean, maybe you have been, but it has always been about the villagers turning into military instantly that has been the problem with this tech. I still believe this technology does not belong in the game. I still believe that it will be OP. In some situations, it's not a panic button. I think that competitively, this will still have some balance repercussions. However, I'm going to extend an olive branch to everyone that likes this, and I want to hear your thoughts. The only way I think I'd be okay with this technology existing, because again, prior to this civilization and a couple other additions within the last couple years, instant, massive swings, this craziness was far into Age of Empires 2, okay? The only way I'd like this is if when you click the button, it would be a long research. The opponent would hear the noise that plays right now. There's a little, right? And there would be a countdown of sorts, or at least the opponent would know it's coming. You can cancel it if you're the offensive player, giving the opposition some time to prepare. Right now, you click the button and it researches in like 3 seconds. You hear the noise, and what's that supposed to tell you? Oh, you're screwed. That's what it is. We've seen examples of Byzantines, all these different civilizations winning. We saw recent examples of unwinnable games get won with the revolution. I'm telling you, the only way I'm okay with this tech coming into the game is if there's a timer, a countdown, and I actually think I would love it and welcome it then. It'd be super cool if players had a little bit of time to prepare and brace themselves, and to be a lot more risk with the revolution. Most high-level players, I think every high-level player I've ever talked to thinks that this should not exist in the game. You don't have to agree with them. You don't have to agree with me. That's my take on the revolution. Moving on past that, we have the Burmese, where the elite Arambai cost was adjusted from 1,100 food and 675 gold to 1,000 food and 750 gold. They made it cheaper to get to a unit, which we've started to see a little bit more of. I'm okay with this. I think the Arambai are actually a very solid unit, and with all the infantry changes, I think Burmese could be a bit of a better civilization. I am disappointed, though, that they didn't do something I suggested a lot over the past year, so I'm going to mention it in a video. These techs need to be changed. The Castle Age unique tech, Howdah, gives battle elephants +1 normal and pierce armor. The Imperial Age technology, cavalry deals +5 bonus attack versus archers. Burmese have an issue versus archers in the Castle Age. However, this technology, which gives them a bonus attack versus archers, is available in the Imperial Age. At that point, they've usually already struggled against archers due to their weaker skirms, right? Elephants are a very expensive unit. You're not seeing a lot of elephants, at least full-price elephants from the Burmese or the Khmer, let's say, in the Castle Age. You're seeing it in the Imperial Age when you have lots of economy. I think it would benefit the Burmese and make their play a bit spicier if you were to swap these techs. Keep the same cost with it, of course, but allow Burmese to maybe have a little bit more light cav play, a little bit more cavalry play in the Castle Age, instead of having to rush to imp for that tech. Just my thoughts. Let me know what you think. The Byzantines did receive an interesting change, where Greek fire now additionally provides 5 splash damage to bombard towers. So they are increasing the defensive capabilities of the Byzantines. I'm kind of okay with it. I don't hate it. But Byzantines are already one of the best defensive civs ever, so I think they just wanted to add a little bit of more spice and glamour to Greek fire and actually see it be used. Also, a small side note about Greek fire, it is a bit of a shame to me that we never see that because the Byzantine fire ships already work so much faster. I understand it's a tech that thematically might fit the Byzantines, but in my opinion, it would actually be good to have another civilization have a tech similar to Greek fire, where you get the extra range from fire ships, because no one's researching Greek fire with the Byzantines because their fire ships are already stupid strong. The next one's fun. We have Celts, where the stronghold effect was increased from 25% to 30% attack, 33% attack speed to towers and castles. This is another tech I had in my useless techs video a couple months back. So they've added an additional effect where there is a healing radius around your castles, healing allied infantry near them by 30 HP per minute. Now, in the public preview build, there was apparently a stack on that. So if you had multiple castles in the same spot, it would heal even faster. I haven't tested it personally. I've heard enough, though, to think that maybe the stacking should either not happen at all, or maybe they should put a cap on that. But then again, like, if you're building more than one castle in the same position, you are leaving yourself exposed elsewhere. So I do kind of like the pros and cons of that decision. I like the fact they've made Stronghold a little bit stronger. I'm curious to see what this does for Celts and their late game. But I am going to say something about Celts, and again, add some opinions here. Celts are a civilization that have been around for so long, and they removed a bonus from Celts 2 years ago, where their infantry was moving faster in the Dark Age. It now is starting in Feudal Age, and that's fine, but they removed it because of one player, and I think you all know who that one player is. If Huang never existed, I think Celts would still have the faster moving infantry in Dark Age, and I think we would see Celts played more. Celts have been played less than ever. They have one of the least picked civilizations in tournaments. They are very niche, and the problem for Celts is that their castle age is very weak, and their early imp transitions are weak. They have weak knights, they have weak archers, but they do have strong infantry. So maybe we're going to see Celts be a little bit better with the infantry soon. My proposal, and again, we got to see how Celts do with this new change with infantry, is that Celts receive the Dark Age speed movement back. It's a classic move. I'd love to see it. And I think giving Celts a little bit of that extra oomph in Dark Age makes up for the fact that they have a weaker Feudal Age and Castle Age. Again, let me know your thoughts. Maybe I'm a little bit off on that. And anyways, let's continue. Another change that the devs made, this is something that was not included in the public preview build. World Raider HP has been increased. Standard World Raider is no longer 65. It is now 70. And then Elite World Raider is no longer 80. It is now 85. They also increased the base attack of the World Raider. So Standard was 10, and then Elite was 13. Now Standard is 11, and Elite is 14, which is pretty good for them. Next on the list alphabetically is the Chinese, which in the public preview build, they had removed a villager from their start, but made it minus 150 food instead of minus 200 food. Chinese, a classic civilization that have existed since the very start. This is an interesting one, okay? Because Chinese are a civilization that have existed since the very start of Age of Empires 2. And Chinese are notorious for being extremely hard to play for beginners and extremely strong at the high level. There might not be a civilization that has a greater disconnect between noobs to pros, except for maybe the Goths, which we'll also talk about in this video. When they put this in the public preview build, I was heavily against it. But I understand what they were trying to do. See, what they're trying to do is they're trying to make the Chinese start easier, right? And more approachable to a beginner player. That way the civilization can be played, while also keeping it at the same spot competitively. But here's the thing, guys. I believe in a game as classic as Age of Empires 2, there are certain things that are tied to civs' identities that should not be adjusted. For example, Huns not having to make houses. Should we suddenly start to give Huns houses because there's a lot of house walling these days in the meta? And it makes it easier for people? Should we remove the HP on Byzantine buildings because it's insanely strong and their castles go over 8,000 HP? I could go down the list, but I was strongly against them changing Chinese from a 6-villager start because I believe familiarity is important to the longevity of Age of Empires 2, and people come and go all the time. So to change Chinese down to 5 villagers was a bit of a problem for me for that reason. So they are reverting this change. They're changing it back to 6 villagers. And I'm going to say one more thing about this. If we only had 20-some civilizations, I think I might even be a bit more okay with changing the Chinese because that's a higher percentage of civilizations that are just really hard for people to play. But we have 42 civilizations now. I think it is completely fine for 1 or 2 civilizations or 5 or 6 civilizations to be awkward, to be different, and to be difficult for beginner players. And I'm not trying to be rude with you guys on that, but I also want to come at it from another perspective. I know how long it took me to get the Chinese start down. It took me a lot of playing Chinese. I remember the work it took, but I remember the satisfaction of being like, well, I actually mastered this start. So I want to give props to the devs for keeping the 6-villager start. It is very difficult to play, I understand that, but the civilization is stacked. And that difficulty is, I think, good for the balance of the Civ. My proposal, if they feel like Chinese are in need of a nerf, and a lot of high-level players do feel like the civilization is too strong on standard land maps, is changing the technology cost. Instead of 10% in Feudal Age, 15% in Castle, and 20% in Imp, I personally would just try and mess with that, right? And make it so maybe it's 5% in Feudal, 10%, 15%. You could even take it down further as well. You could also remove maybe heavy camel So, they have to play into halberdier a little bit more frequently, and not having camel and castle age could make their mid game a little weaker. But I have to say, I'm really excited that the devs didn't change it fully from 6 villagers, and it was just in the preview build. I would have had a cow, and we'll move on past the Chinese now. The Dravidians are a new civ. They've kind of felt awkward to play. They will, however, see some big changes and potentially be stronger due to the fact that infantry is buffed in this patch. They also received a bonus where siege units cost 33% less wood. This bonus is kind of meh for me. I mean, yeah, it is good for an infantry civilization to have cheaper siege. I just feel like it's kind of a ripoff of what the Slavs have, which is cheaper siege. But then again, the Dravidians needed something, and I think thematically they don't want to give them knights or anything. So I'm mainly curious to see how Dravidians are going to play out with their elephant archers in the long term, because I think elephant archers are a bit underrated with them. Their skirms are pretty strong. So their infantry archer play combined with some cheap siege definitely makes them stronger. The devs definitely have their eye on the Dravidians and their elephants because they did buff medical corps. Again, I don't think this was in the public preview build, but the cost was reduced from 350 food and 250 gold to 300 food and 200 gold, making it a bit cheaper. And then instead of healing 20 HP per minute, it is now 30 HP per minute. The Ethiopians received a change, which I'm pretty excited about. Their team bonus has been changed to outpost +3 line of sight and cost no stone. I think outposts are an underutilized building in the first place. Ethiopian outposts already have a ton of extra line of sight. I think prior to this patch, I think it was maybe +2 or +1. You'll have to correct me in the comments. But the fact that they get a lot of line of sight and they can make outposts while not sacrificing any of their stone is super helpful. I could see players playing open and aggressive with Ethiopians and then still having the stone to drop town centers. The Royal Heirs effect was changed from Showtail Warriors, changed 100% faster to Showtails and Camels. Now, I forget if I had Royal Heirs as a unique tech in my most useless unique tech video this year, but they did change that to Showtail Warriors and Camel units receive -3 damage from mounted units. I know some people really like the Royal Heirs because they like to spam the Showtail Warriors, but the reality is that Showtail Warriors already produced faster than most unique units, so it did make a lot of sense to have a technology attached to them that would make them produce a little bit faster. So this makes the Ethiopians a little bit more flexible, and they also did just decrease the time of elite Showtail Warriors to 8 seconds to 4 seconds anyways. So I don't know exactly what it was after Royal Heirs before, but they're still producing really fast. The Franks did receive Gambesons, which we, of course, touched on earlier with that list. But the Goths have received an eco bonus, my friends. And the new bonus for the Goths is that hunt lasts 20% longer. So this means more food for the Goths. This means a better Dark Age for the Goths. This means a better Feudal Age for the Goths. And most of you know, if the Goths make it to Castle Age and they're not dead already, they can potentially counter everything. Now, they don't get Gambesons, obviously. They already have a high Pierce Armor unit in the Huskarl to deal with archers. But Goth infantry is super cheap. And this could be a dangerous change. My opinion prior to what I saw they decided to do with the Goths was that if you give Goths an eco bonus, you should nerf Perfusion. An opinion I heard from some pro players. Because if you give them a better early game, you have to make it a little bit more difficult for them in the late game. I was thinking maybe barracks working 70% or 50% faster instead of 100%. But it's awkward for me because isn't Perfusion and 100% faster barracks part of the Goths' identity? I think it is. So I don't hate the change, but I could see the Goth thing being a slippery slope. Maybe I'm just thinking too ahead of myself, though, because hey, the Goths, they do still have to work really hard to get to their infantry. And there are now a lot of other civilizations that can maybe compete a bit more against them with infantry. So maybe it'll all balance out in the end. Moving to the other G, we have the Gurjaras. And they have nerfed one of the best unique techs in the game. And I still think it could need more nerfing, honestly. I believe it's pronounced Kshatriyas, where military units cost -25% food. It was 200 food and 400 gold before, which was dirt cheap for a tech that does that. It's been moved to 500 food and 450 gold. I just feel like 25% off is a lot and adds up, especially with the civilization that has so many units that cost food, like camels, hussars, and chakrams. We'll see, though. It was definitely a good change. It's way more difficult to get to now, which is awesome. And They also changed the Shravamsha rider, which has been pretty obnoxious since release. The Shravamsha cost increased from 70 food and 20 gold to 70 food and 30 gold, which honestly feels about right for me. I wouldn't want it to be any more expensive than that, as they do have their weaknesses. Also, they changed the reload time from 1.75 to 2.0. Also says in parentheses here 1.9, so I don't even know what that means. But anyways, it's probably like rounded up or something. And yeah, again, I think that this nerfs the unit a bit. Basically, it can soak up arrows. It doesn't actually dodge anything, and that just decreases the amount of time in between when it is like recharging that ability to dodge. Gurjaras will still be strong. I don't think they'll be as crazy strong, and it's a good nerf. Moving on to the Huns. Wow, guys, I'm excited. They made some changes to the Huns, and the change was a small one, but a good one. Atheism cost has been decreased from 500 food and 500 gold to 500 food and 300 wood. I, again, had this in my most useless unique tech video this year. Who was ever going to spend 500 food and 500 gold for the opponent not to get as much gold from relics? Because, I mean, unless you're playing Wonder Relic Victory, that is really the only reason you would research it in competitive games. So, enemy relics generate minus 50% resources, but you spend food and wood to do it, which I think is super worth it. It's a fun technology. I like the fact that they left the relic and wonder victory aspect to it, and the relics generating less resources can actually be used in competitive games. Good stuff. Oh boy, the Incas are next, and man, oh man, are the Incas gonna be crazy. The Inca military unit food cost is minus 15%, minus 20%, minus 25, and then minus 30. It goes all the way up. Units get cheaper on food throughout the whole game. This is on top of a lot of other bonuses, which are really nice for the Incas that they have, right? Houses supporting 10 population, buildings costing less stone, and a tech tree, which kind of can deal with anything, right? They have good infantry, they have good eagles, they have great archers, good skirms. They have the slinger, which is a unique unit no one else has. And then they have the Kamyuk, which I think we'll see a lot more use now because the gold cost isn't that heavy on it, and it's a strong unit. It's pretty crazy they've gone that far with the Incas. And it doesn't stop there, because Andean Sling, again, was on my list of useless unique technologies. Upgrade your skirmishers and slingers by removing their minimum range, but also giving slingers +1 attack. Overall, I feel like the tech is still fairly useless for skirmishers, but the +1 attack on slingers can be helpful in some situations. What they also did was they increased the cost of each Kamyuk. They made it from 60 food to 30 gold to 65 food and 30 gold. I don't know what the math ends up being on how much food this actually costs after the discounts, but it was probably correct from them. Bump it up a little bit, so when that discount comes in, the unit's not quite as cheap. They removed a bonus from the Incas, starting with the free llama, and replaced it with the team bonus of start with the free llama. So now you and all your team gets llamas, which I find pretty exciting. I mean, listen, Incas don't have a stable unit. So the food cost being as cheap as it is here, especially when we just talked about the Gurjaras having that tech, it's not quite as crazy as you might think, but making their Kamyuks, making their champion line, and even making eagles is quite nice. I think the math is if you make eagles in Castle Age now, it's 19 food, which is even cheaper than it would have been before. So I think Incas are one of the big winners of this patch, and I've been calling for some identity for the Incas, something to spice up the Incas to have people pick them over the Mayans and the Aztecs for quite some time. So this goes down as my favorite change the devs have made in this patch. Good stuff. Next, we have the Japanese, who have received access to hoardings. That can be helpful in keeping their castles up. Their castles will be very important. And the Kata Peruto cost has been reduced from 750 wood and 400 gold to 550 wood and 300 gold. So Kata Peruto, I mean, I think it's a really underrated tech already, but it's just been costly. So now that it's a bit cheaper, I think we could see those Japanese trebuchets all over the map. And those castles might not go down as quickly because hoardings is available for more hit points. The next change is to the Khmer and the Ballista Elephant. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm not sure how big of an effect this is really going to have. You could read the whole description of it here. I do feel like the Elite Ballista Elephant is a really strong unit. I think it will continue to be, so we can move on past that to the Koreans. And the Koreans have a change that won't change too much, but the Elite Turtle Ship range has been increased from 6 to 7. My take on that is that I feel like we don't see Elite Turtle Ships that much in general. I feel like the issue for the elite turtle ship is the fact that you can't even keep your turtle ships alive in Castle Age, but it is a unit that is extremely pop efficient and super strong. And I could see maybe in team games where you have a lot of economy, a lot of elite turtle ships actually working and being even stronger now. So, turtle ship hype. The next change is a pretty considerable one for our meta because this civ is seen all the time. And the Lithuanian bonus is no longer receiving 150 extra food at the start. It's been changed to each town center provides 100 food. So basically, once you complete your town center, or you start the game with a town center, you have 100 extra food instead of 150. But then when you make new town centers later on, you receive a bit of a food boost for each one. I don't hate this change. I've always felt like the plus 150 food at the start was almost too much over other civilizations. That's a lot of food. So nerfing that down in Dark Age is quite nice. This also does give them some uniqueness and some fun things to play around with in the mid game. The Lithuanians are still really strong. I am shocked that they still haven't made any changes to the Latus, who ignores armor, has insane base attack, and is seemingly more than worth its cost. But they didn't seem to have an issue with that, and my opinions don't matter there. So Lithuanians, new change, and a good change in my opinion. Moving on to the Malay, they now receive infantry armor upgrades for free. That's right, for free. Pretty crazy. I think the Malay have been slept on a little bit over the years. And not only will that make their militia play on open maps like Arabia pretty strong, but I think it's going to lead to some pretty crazy karambit spam. You know, the crazy thing with Malay is a lot of people have just been waiting to make infantry with them and mainly going archers. I think we could see a lot more infantry play, and pro players are going to get the most out of this one. As a small side note, I actually think of all the things that are coming to this patch, this is near the top of my list of things that will eventually be tweaked. I think pro players are going to use it and abuse it that much, but let's find out. Moving on to the Malians, their unique unit, the Gambesons, has received more HP, which I think is a nice change. It's been increased from 35 to 45, and then Elite has gone from 40 to 50. They also, and most importantly, made a change where the 30% laster longing gold mines bonus has been changed to villagers dropping off 15% more gold. I haven't tested this a ton, but what they're trying to do is they're trying to replicate where the Malians were prior to the introduction of Bohemians. Because when they introduced the Bohemians, which received all mining upgrades for free, they had to remove the Malians getting one free gold mining bonus in feudal. And Malians felt very flexible and very strong there. Without that little bit of spike of gold, they felt pretty flat, and there's been other weaknesses for them that have been more exposed. So basically, I think Malians have a bit more power to them. They were never really a good late game powerhouse anyways, with the gold lasting longer. So it's a good change. I think it's quite fun. And also, they buffed Tigui, where Tigui now adds additional arrows, changed from 5 to 8 arrows from your town centers after researching it. Oh, and another big thing to mention is that the wood discount does not apply to the starting town center for the Malians. You're going to see in the next civilization that they've done a similar thing. Again, this is just to make civilizations feel like they're on more even footing on Nomad. Malians could afford a town center, a dock, a house, and a fishing ship, just like the Persians, which is coming up because of their bonuses. Now, Malians can't do that on Nomad, which brings them closer to other civs. So again, Persians, surprise, surprise, coming up next. Instead of receiving the 50 food and the 50 wood when the game starts with Persians, which again allows you to get the dock up, get the TC up, get the house, get the fishing ship, they receive the 50 starting wood and food after completing the TC. So it just slows down their Nomad start where they're already really strong. So I think that's good. Also, I think it's kind of funny they received Gambesons because they only get longsword, but I suppose it doesn't hurt. Moving on, we have the Poles, where similar to the Berbers, they have changed the laminess of them, where the villager regeneration bonus now starts in feudal age. I uploaded many videos with the Berbers and the Poles vill rushing, and a lot of people really hate it. It discourages people from playing the game. And, you know, all the people out there villager rushing in Dark Age and being a pain, you kind of ruined it for everyone else who liked the bonus in Dark Age. I think it's a good change, and they now just regenerate starting in feudal. Moving on to the Portuguese, there's been a lot of adjustments, mainly to the organ gun. I think we all knew this had to be coming because the Portuguese have the Feitorias. All their units cost 20% less gold. Their ships are really strong. And then also their forgers generate wood now, which was a recent bonus. I think some of the crazy arena games we had in Titans League really made it obvious to the devs, like, listen, we either need to remove the forge and wood bonus, which is pretty good for the game, or adjust the organ gun. And they are making a lot of adjustments to the organ gun, as you can see here. So they've made it a bit more difficult to do damage with them all the time. I think what these bonuses end up meaning is that the closer the unit is to the organ gun, the better the organ gun will be against it, whereas it's less accurate from distance. I'm honestly going to have to see how things play out with the organ gun, but this seems like a good start. I would have also really liked them taking a lot of damage from siege. The fact that a mangonel wouldn't one-shot them or wouldn't take much HP off at all was a big issue. That was one of the tools that players could maybe use to defend against them. But the only other thing that changed with Portuguese, beyond them receiving Gambesons, which we've been listing on screen, is the Elite Caravel upgrade cost was adjusted from 750 food and 475 gold to 700 food and 525 gold. Honestly, they might have just made that change to remind people that Caravel exists, because I don't see that being a big change. To the Saracens we go. Zealotry, one of my favorite unique techs, has been reduced, which is quite nice. The cost has been reduced from 500 food and 450 gold to 400 food and 400 gold. So we might see Mamelukes a bit more frequently, or just their very strong standard camos out of their stables could benefit from this a bit earlier in game. They also receive Gambesons. Saracens have already had good infantry. It's, well, at least the champion line they've had, if need be. Good stuff from the devs on the Saracens. The Sicilians, they made a lot of tweaks to. And I have been super critical and sometimes salty about the Sicilians ever since they've been made. I'll be honest, I felt like it was lazy civ design. Oh, we're going to give this civilization 100% faster building castles and a button they can press that can give them all these instant units. And instead of utilizing the cool little unique building and the unique unit and trying to incentivize that, we're just going to give them a tech which makes their cavaliers stronger. Have never been a fan, but they have alleviated many of my concerns here. Castles and town centers built 100% faster has been changed to castles built 50% faster. I can deal with that. And town centers built 100% faster. I like it. And then a bunch of changes to the donjon, their tower-like building. The donjon is affected by hoardings. That could be good for late game. But the donjon can now train the spearman line, and it now functions as a prerequisite for archer range and stable. So instead of going for barracks and archer range, if you're going archers and you want to go spearman archers, you could build a donjon on your gold or your wood line, right? Make some spearmen, then open up with your archer range. This is what I wanted. Like, I wanted there to be some incentive to make the donjon early. And it seems like they realized that if you couldn't make spearmen, you probably wouldn't see it. I'm still unsure on if it's going to be seen that frequently, because you can only make the donjon starting in feudal, which means you would delay your archer range and stable and spearmen. But it's something, and I'm willing to see how it plays out. They also have lessened the blow of First Crusade. Instead of getting 7 sergeants per town center, you get 5. And a lot of this is probably because they're buffing the sergeant, where the sergeant HP has been increased from 45 to 50 HP in feudal, 65 to 75 HP in castle, and then the elite upgrade has gone down from 1100 food and 800 gold to 800 food and 675 gold. Sergeants do now build/repair 25% slower in feudal age, and this civilization's extra starting stone is received after completing the first town center, sticking to the consistency of nomad bonuses. And while most of this just touched on how Sicilians will play out with their military units, they did also buff the Sicilian farms even more, where farms' additional food bonus has been increased from plus 100% food to plus 125% food. I don't think that adds a whole lot. I think the amount of food they've had on their farms has already been awesome. But again, they're trying to show more of the Sicilians. I think Elite Sergeant, in combination with Seadram and How, is already been really strong. I think First Crusade can give this civilization a boost, as we've seen many times, if players kind of get used to a meta where they see donjons a little bit more with the Sicilians. If the economy feels stronger on the back of better aggression from the Sicilians, I think there's a world, maybe in a year, maybe in a year and a half, where they either have to nerf or remove the Hallberg technology. Because fact of the matter is, this civilization, while it's not really doing that well in our meta right now, it's got a lot of options. It's got good economy, and it's got a button which gives you a boost of military, combined with a tech that gives you tanky knights. So I'm not calling for it right now, but again, I'm a big identity guy. This Hallberg technology has felt kind of forced to me ever since it was introduced. Let's see how things develop first, though, with the Sicilians. Thank you, devs. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to see donjons and sergeants and all these types of things more. Let's go. Moving on, we have the Slavs, a civilization that has fast farmers, but hasn't received any love at all over the last year or two in tournaments. Boyar cost has been adjusted from 50 food and 80 gold to 60 food and 70 gold. I think this could mean that we see a bit more Boyars. Boyars have always been a good unit, but it's just been the cost of the unit that's been extremely complicated. So, good stuff there. Also, Drużyna cost has been reduced from 1,200 food and 500 gold to 900 food and 500 gold, making it easier for a really strong technology to be researched on a patch where we've already seen other buffs to infantry. And while those two things are exciting, I think the biggest thing here is the civilization in Slavs that received free supplies all this time, received supplies and Gambesons for free. So they can be making cheaper and higher pierce armor infantry without having to research those technologies, does still have the 10% faster farming. Slavs have had a very awkward time because they have awkward range units. Infantry siege and monk is sometimes difficult in more open maps, and there's been better civilizations on closed maps. I'm excited to play with this civilization now and switch into longswords in combination with pikemen and siege and monks, and then their late game, also really strong. I've spoken to a lot of people about the Slavs. The general feeling is people would have really liked to have just seen their farms go up more, because it feels like Polish farms and Chinese farms, all those farms just feel stronger right now. But I'll tell you what, don't forget about this unique technology in detonates, which they added over the last year, which replaces some of the castles and tower stone cost with wood. We could have castles everywhere. We could have crazy infantry with Slavs. Let's go. Okay, so when I looked at Spanish originally, I was just thinking, please let missionaries pick up relics. Please let missionaries pick up relics. And there is a missionary change, not exactly what I wanted. The missionary change is that after Inquisition, which increases monk conversion rate, missionaries receive +1 range. Pretty inconsequential in my opinion. The weakness of missionaries is the fact that they haven't had as much range as monks. They still won't have as much range as monks, but it could mean that we see missionaries a little bit more. I kind of doubt it. The Conquistador, however, has been changed after all these years, and the Castle Age version now has -1 pierce armor. This is a good change, in my opinion, because Conquistadors completely wreck if you get to them. Now, if you're going crossbowmen or cav archers, you're just doing a bit more damage against a unit that could just win you games. Can win you games with like 5 or 6 of them at times. So a good change. I think the Conquistador will still be strong. And the Spanish have received some love elsewhere. They now have a new bonus where they gain 20 gold for each technology researched, which felt a little forced to me the first time I heard it, right? Because Spanish have been around a long time. Spanish haven't had an eco bonus. We're kind of low on ideas because the game's been around for so long. But I kind of like it. So as far as I know, it doesn't apply to advancing up in age. But when you arrive to feudal age and you get horse collar and double bit axe, boom, suddenly you get 40 gold. That's not bad. Then maybe wheelbarrow, then maybe the blacksmith technologies, which already don't cost gold with the Spanish. And I think it's enough of a gold boost where it makes a bit of a difference, but it's not game breaking, right? Spanish haven't really been a civilization where you're spamming a ton of upgrades anyways, right? So I don't know, like, I kind of like it. It might even be a world where it's too strong, but I mean, Spanish have really only been good on Nomad, which we'll get to in a second, and haven't been picked that frequently on more closed maps or more open maps. So this boost to Spanish, taking them away from the Conquistador, which is really the only thing people have tried to play with them, is quite nice. Another thing for Spanish is that the build speed bonus does not apply to the starting town center anymore. So Spanish, Persians, Malians, other civilizations too, of course, but these bonuses that have made Spanish, Malians, and Persians the picks on Nomad are now going away. Will Spanish still be strong on Nomad? Absolutely. Are they going to be the best civilization now? Maybe not. It's a good change from the devs. I'm so excited to just go scout rush with Spanish and like get a couple blacksmith upgrades now. Like, oh man, don't get me started. A small change to the Tatars came in where the Keshik training time was increased from 16 to 17 seconds. I don't think we need to touch on that too much. The next one, though, is Turks, where I think the devs have realized that they made a bit of a mistake when they changed the artillery cost in one of the most recent patches. Basically, I think artillery costs used to have stone costs instead of gold, and they changed it to wood and gold, but it actually made it so much easier to afford artillery. Stone was actually more difficult to justify, and the 14-range bombard cannons have been dominating the arena meta. So instead, they made it 600 food and 650 gold. I think that's a good spot. Sure, it might not have made a lot of sense for the tech to cost stone before because your cannons didn't cost stone. Well, guess what? Now you're spending a lot of food and gold, which means a little bit less of everything else. Still strong, and Turks are in a really good spot balance-wise, so they didn't need anything else. The Teutons receive Gambesons. Oh, and the other thing about Teutons that wasn't featured in the public testing build, Teutonic Knight cost has been reduced from 85 food and 40 gold to 85 food and 30 gold. So these capey boys are a little bit cheaper now. The Vietnamese received a change to paper money, a technology that gives you a gold trickle from your lumberjacks in late game. And the cost has been reduced from 600 wood and 350 gold, which is really pricey for what it actually does, to 550 food and 200 wood. I like it a lot. You're not spending gold to get it. You get some gold in return. It takes a long time. Makes sense to me. And then our last civilization that was changed has received some interesting bonuses, the Vikings. A civilization that has always been listed as infantry and naval, was known as a very strong archer and eco-civilization until they removed thumb ring, and people have been complaining a lot about. Upgrade Chieftains now also provides infantry with a gold generation while attacking villagers, trade units, and monks. This is in addition to infantry gaining bonus damage versus cavalry. So there's 2 reasons to research Chieftains now. It's pretty cool as well thematically, I think, because the Vikings were kind of known as villager raiders. Chieftains change, pretty cool. And I'm excited to see how it goes. The famous Viking pikeman raids will maybe be stronger, or when berserks raid your economy, it could be more devastating because they receive gold. But they removed Berserker Gang, a tech which has been around for so long, and removed it with the tech that I didn't do any homework on how to pronounce. I apologize. And I'm just going to say Bogsvigar, where the archer line and longboats receive +1 attack. It's an interesting tech, and I think that they are trying to make the ranged options for the Vikings a bit stronger in imp due to the lack of thumb ring, and it's certainly going to help. I'm not sure if I agree with buffing longboats, because I feel like longboats are already really strong, but buffing the archer line to the Vikings while also making it a bit easier to go for infantry, also on a patch where there's been a lot of other changes to infantry and they do receive Gambesons, is pretty good, I think. And also what they've done, they have made it so elite berserks heal, instead of 20 HP per minute, 40 HP per minute. So I don't know if that was the change from a standard elite berserk healing to Berserker Gang elite healing. But essentially they said, listen, this is a unit that heals. We had a tech that made it heal more. The Civ feels kind of bland on land. Let's just let it heal a little bit faster in the first place and mix in another tech. And from what I know about this tech that I can't pronounce, it's also somewhat historical, somewhat cool. So, cool stuff. So the cherry on top and the icing on the cake is one general change I forgot to mention, and that's about elephant archers. So in the public update preview, the training speed for the elephant archer, a unit that I feel can be very strong and hard to deal with if you get to them, was decreased. The training speed is now going to be 32 seconds, which is just a couple seconds off from what it was in the pup build. But the big one, in my opinion, is they were proposing a change to the cost of elite, and they were going to make elite elephant archer cost 800 wood and 500 gold, changing it from 900 food and 500 gold, which would have made it so difficult to play against elephant archers, I think, because what makes it complicated to get that massive elephant archers is the fact that the units themselves cost food and gold, and the upgrades cost food and gold. I think the devs did the right thing on this because elephant archers are still getting figured out. And if it becomes too easy to get to these things, it is a unit that's really difficult to deal with. Siege doesn't do a lot of damage to them. There's some unique technologies that still need to be explored with them. And having played a lot of team games in Black Forest recently, 40, 50 elephant archers in team games is extremely tough to deal with. So that, my friends, is it. It is very possible I missed a few things here. I apologize. We did our best on this. I did record this prior to the update going live to try to get as many details in here as possible. My general feelings on this patch are that it's a really positive patch. I think that buffing infantry in the ways that they have while nerfing eagles at the same time might lead to an eventual buff to eagles because they are kind of double dipping on that one. But I think it's going to shake up the meta in a nice way. And I don't really think that overall the champion line is going to be too strong. I think knights and crossbows still going to have their place. Knights due to their mobility, crossbows due to their range. But if you're someone who likes to use barracks units, you're going to like this patch. I think you're going to be able to push forward a bit more frequently with infantry, or at least be able to justify switching to infantry a bit faster in key moments in a game. I also do, again, want to bring this up and thank the devs so much, at least personally, because maybe you guys don't agree. Thank you for reverting the change to the Chinese. The civilization's been around too long with the 6 villager start. I think there are many things that can be explored with that civilization if there's concerns that it's too strong. I was going to do a public preview build video, but honestly, I would have been so frustrated with that and instead made it a video on why certain things in this game shouldn't change, sounding like a super old man who, I walked uphill both ways to get the Chinese back in the day. So, you know, I would have come off the wrong way. But, you know, I expressed myself as professionally as I could behind the scenes. I know many other people did as well. And I'm just very happy that I could be excited about this patch and all the changes in general. I mean, I'm super pumped to see how the Malay, the Incas, and the Sicilians played out, civilizations that probably haven't been getting as much love. And I'm excited to bring videos to you guys, too. I will be keeping a close eye out for really good games. Don't forget that you could submit games where you're testing some of this new stuff in my Discord, discord.gg/T90official. We have a Discord submissions channel where you can put your games. And if you appreciate the effort, you appreciate the time put into everything here, please leave a like, please leave a comment. And as always, there's a video every day on this channel. Thank you guys for everything, and I hope you guys enjoy this new update. Long live Age of Empires 2. Let's go.